Like a lot of my hobbies I've picked up from the internet. I've been around since the near inception of this one because I'm ancient and decrepit now. I've unwillingly become some sort of Professor Oak figure, and I'm going to develop some sort of disease soon from being old and seeing all of this stuff happen that I'm about to complain about. Naturally, I'm gonna end up skipping over a lot of big names here, like Flora Sky, Shiny Gold, the Ruby Destiny series, because this isn't supposed to be a history lesson. It's just to set stuff up for when I begin to bitch. Pokemon ROM hacks have been around probably, now at this point in 2024, I could probably say longer than a lot of people that play them have existed. I think the first one I played was in 2005. It released in 2004, and that was Pokemon Brown. That was made by the same guy who proceeded to make Pokemon Prism, which hit the internet in 2016, and then you know what happened from there, I'm sure. In between there, a lot of important key things happened in the ROM hacking community that led us to where we are now. I'll quickly go over it, but like I said, this isn't a history lesson. If you want to know more about this, research it yourself. So back in the day, to see a ROM hack get completed was rarer than actually catching an STD from a toilet seat. So when it happened, it was a big deal, and regardless of the content, everybody would play it. And of course, these are very hard to put out, and people at this time understood that, so there wasn't too much infighting and complaining in the community at this point. There was, but not anything compared to what it is now. I think the first hack to get a complete custom Pokedex, regardless of the quality of the Pokemon, was Quartz, which was 2006. And I think it also changed Hoenn slightly. It still heavily resembled Hoenn, but the region was edited. Then sometime after that, you had Snakewood, which people act like it's like one of the worst ROM hacks ever made, but comparatively at the time, it was pretty technologically impressive to a lot of the other trash that was constantly released around here. But people didn't care. The reason ROM hacks were made was because we liked Pokemon and we wanted more content to play, and it was fun to do. That was it. I'm going to preface this part of the video with, he had no idea what his actions would do to the community, but when Drayano hit the scene with Fire Red Omega, everything changed forever. Fire Red Omega was the first difficulty hack at the time, or at least the first relevant one. The other name this type of hack has received from the community is Drayano hacks, which you probably have also heard of. So he made Fire Red with the intent to kick the shit out of you, but sort of still not in like a completely unfair way. Fire Red Omega still sort of holds up alright, but it stood out among the crowd because it made the starters Elekid, Smoochum, Magby, all the trainers that were completely overhauled, all the wild Pokemon. There's just all kinds of new stuff, moveset revisions, things like that. Doing stupid shit like making Luxray Dark type because it has black fur wasn't really a common thing yet, so Pokemon typings went unchanged. It was just level up movesets. More and more easy to use tools started popping up, advanced map, advanced text, advanced trainer, XSE, shit like that, that made editing the games even easier. And naturally, this is where it all truly began. But we wouldn't know until years later. So, anyone who wanted to now could make a ROM hack. There were enough resources out there made by people who have made hacks, and there are so many easy to use tools, it's just a matter of knowing how to read. Then over the course of the next few years, Emerald and Fire Red hacks with literally any noun or adjective slapped onto it were just shat out. Theta Emerald, Emerald Exceeded, Emerald Final, Inclement Emerald, Inflamed Red, Blazing Fire Red, Charged Red, Radical Red. They aren't all just difficulty hacks either. There are just as many ROM hacks out there trying to provide the best vanilla experience, so they won't heavily modify core mechanics, but add features to make the game better to play. Those obviously follow the same naming convention. Cosmic Emerald, Sigma Emerald, Delta Emerald, Fire Red, Leaf Green Plus, Pokemon Throwback. It's all the same. everyone's gonna think their ideas are good and want to share them with the world, so we'll get a ton of bloat like that. I can't fault anyone for it. I'm putting an idea out there right now that I'm sure people don't give a fuck about, but it sure is exhausting seeing new hack released only to click it, and then you see the first message or like line of dialogue in the post being, "This hack is intended to be the definitive fire red experience." More often than not, it's not. And I think a lot of people don't really even seem to know what difficulty is or what a definitive experience would even entail. The term quality of life hit the Pokemon ROM hacking community harder than fentanyl hit Kensington. There is so much bullshit surrounding this specific topic, I'm not even sure what to address first, because I've never in my life seen a group of self-proclaimed fans of something hate interacting with that piece of media that they say they are a fan of. I don't get it. The one I personally hate the most are infinite rare candies being considered quality of life. I'm not exactly sure when this started, because way back when Fire Red Omega was first released, doing something like this would get you laughed at, and I typically avoid the greater Pokemon ROM hacking community now, because if I hang out there for too long, I gotta go through chemotherapy sessions. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and assume that the rare candy stuff stems from all of these quote-unquote professional nuzlocking sweat beasts. Because naturally, when you dedicate your life to playing children's games edited to the point of masochism, you're gonna need cheats to speed things up for content. And that's perfectly fine. I'm fine with it. But what I'm not fine with is not calling it what it is. Before adding rare candies as a key item was a thing, you would have to literally click the thing on the screen that says cheats and input a code to get rare candies, or use a third-party application to edit the save data. There's no getting around it. My entire will to play a Pokemon ROM hack gets sucked out of me when I see infinite rare candies as a feature. The common argument for this is that with level caps, you'll never be over leveled and it saves time anyway. The other argument, the more insane one that is used by people that are coping really, really hard and can't face reality, is often when they are nuzlocking. And nuzlocking isn't some official sanctioned thing. It just has a pretty basic rule set that you're kind of expected to follow if you do it. So of course you can deviate from this and do whatever you want. No one's gonna care. But the most important thing about a Nuzlocke is that it is a Pokemon game. As much as you want it to be, it's not some weird battle simulator. Nuzlocks want you to get from point A to point B without losing any Pokemon on the way. So of course, when you train up a Pokemon immediately when you catch it with rare candies to whatever level cap the game has, that entire part of the game gets cast aside. And when you bring that up is when they hit you with the, "I could just grind against Pidgey for 5 hours and get to the level I want and never die." But I don't think I've ever seen any of these people do that. Ever. One time. It's okay to lose something in a Nuzlocke, that's the point. It's when something dies in a Nuzlocke, it's fun because it throws a wrench into your plans. You don't have to, it's okay, it's gonna be okay. But when you add both level caps and infinite rare candies, it's no longer an adventure or an RPG. You are playing a battle puzzle simulator. The game it sounds like this group of people want to play is Pokemon Showdown against computer-controlled characters with procedurally generated teams. I'm not exactly sure, but I don't know why people feel like this needs to be a thing in every ROM hack. God forbid the person who crafted a new region doesn't want you to just use 99 rare candies on your starter and play the game. And it's not like that Showdown thing wouldn't even make for an interesting ROM hack. I think things like that exist and are in development. It'd be perfectly fine and fun to play as its own little thing without having to shove those ideals onto every other ROM hack in the community. It's essentially asking every ROM hack to turn its boss fights into those Yu-Gi-Oh! Side mission things in the video games where you have to win in a certain amount of turns with a set hand and field. These hacks are also guilty of this other strange thing where every single boss fight has to have perfect coverage, optimal items, abilities, IVs, EVs, everything. There are ways to make an engaging Roxanne Gym 1 fight without giving her 6 fossil Pokemon. All of these really popular ones almost feel like you aren't expected to beat each boss on your first try and they want you to die multiple times to figure it out. Or the other thing that I don't like that's being forced onto every other ROM hacker is documentation. A lot of people, because they include PDF files or text files that include information about every facet of their ROM hack, it makes them feel more confident in doing ridiculous things like giving the first gym leader Bolt Beam. So I don't know if these people making these really hard hacks have an inferiority complex, little man syndrome, anything like that. It feels like they don't want you to beat their games. It's to the point where people will make damage calcs for these ROM hacks where Pokemon stats or typings get changed. It's really funny. Another weird element here is it's not like Pokemon is known for having a good battle system, like at all. It's famous for the opposite. It's always meant to be this brain off, baby easy game where you do very basic addition and subtraction to figure out how you're gonna beat your enemy. It never was this incredibly deep game. All depth in Pokemon comes from human versus human interaction. The mental struggle between the two players is the entire point of the battle. This doesn't happen against AI. Unless you're P-brain, of course, I guess. I'll include that. It is probably the most basic, accessible battle systems made in RPG history, but we still have grown men playing a game made not for them and think that if each battle takes over 15 tries in 20 minutes, then it's genuine difficulty, boys. We did it. I have no clue when annoying and difficult became synonyms, but that's for another time. And these are obviously the most popular type of hack too, because you can just poop stuff like this out. I legitimately think I could make a hack like this in a day, no exaggeration. But that entire tangent was because of documentation. There are completely tame hacks out there like Pokemon Coral, where it's just a story-based hack where you go through the region, collect your badges, beat the game. They just want you to have an authentic, natural experience with their game. They don't want you to have to read through 50 pages of stuff. They don't want you to plan your team beforehand. Just play the game. And you know what? If your views don't line up with that developer, I just spent 12 minutes complaining about how there are millions of different hacks out there. Why do you get hung up on the one that doesn't have what you want? Why would you want to play a game by somebody that you deem as lazy? Just like how I'm not entitled for everybody that's working on a shitty difficulty hack to pack it up and finish and don't release it. You aren't entitled to a ROM hacker giving you anything. They're working on a passion project. If you like it, play it, let them know you like it, say thanks, cool game. If you don't like it, move on. So the video's over now. Clearly, if you didn't know before for some reason, I'm obviously really passionate about ROM hacking. It's not just Pokemon. I would like to cover individual ROM hacks, I think, like this at some point too. So maybe keep an eye out for that. If you also notice any weird cuts, it's because I did that completely off the top. I can't read a script, so my bad if that was jarring.